Hello there, my lovelies. This is Brady, and here we go, another week, and this week is all about Marvel. And if you know anything about me, I'll admit, I'm kind of a Marvel shill. So, am I going to say positive things about Moon Knight and Doctor Strange? Yeah, probably. Let's get into it. Reviews versus the world! Alright, so before I get into all the Marvelness of this week, which of course, you know, there has been a lot of Marvel, as I mentioned, I do want to talk about some of the other stuff that I've been into. And one of those things is a book that I did not expect to enjoy like I am at all, because it is so very much not my genre, and that is Ghost Station. Now, of course, what is my genre is, you know, things like Brandon Sanderson, which, you know, I bring him up a lot, but that's because he's very influential on me. He's probably my favorite author. He's outstanding. I love all of his stuff. And he does a weekly podcast with his good friend, author Dan Wells. And earlier this year, I actually went through one of Dan's big series, which is I Am Not a Serial Killer, which are books that I very much enjoyed. But, you know, I was wanting to check out maybe something different that Dan has done. And so I decided to pick up Ghost Station, knowing absolutely nothing about it. And boy howdy, let me tell you, it is not what I was expecting. First of all, no ghosts. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but there's no ghost involved here. There's nothing supernatural. No. What this book is it's set during the Cold War. It is a Cold War historical fiction about codebreakers in Berlin right after the Berlin Wall goes up. And that is not something that you would usually see Brady talking about. It's not my thing. It's not really my style, but here it works. It works really well. And that's because it takes a lot of familiar tropes and it plays them outstandingly. You know, if you have a mole hunt, I can usually get into that, you know, trying to figure out who the spy within the spies is. And you get your mole hunt here, and you get it in spades, and it is played off very well. You get code breakers, you get cryptography, you get all of this spy drama, and you have these outstanding characters in this interesting setting, and it's relatable, and it's interesting, and it makes me think, am I missing out on historical fiction? You know, because it's not sci-fi and it's not fantasy. It's not the Brady bag. But am I missing out? So if you have a suggestion for a good historical fiction that you think that I might actually like, go ahead and drop it down in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you think. Because Ghost Station is something that completely surprised me, and I love the crap out of this book. Alright, now let's jump over to a video game, because I love me some video games. And, you know, I haven't really been playing much new this week, but I did start into something that is a game that I just didn't play when it came out, you know, 4 years ago, or whenever it was, and that is Far Cry 5. Now, here's the thing with me and Ubisoft. I like a lot of what they do. I think that they have a lot of inherent goodness in a lot of their titles. But there's usually something that just drives me a little crazy that I just can't get into as much. And I think that Far Cry 5 shows me exactly what that is. And it really comes down to this. So Far Cry 5, for those of you who don't know, it's set in kind of, you know, rural USA. It has this whole cult aspect of, you know, religious fanaticism. blah, 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 blah. You have a bunch of rednecks in the woods, sort of thing. And it's an open world game. And what I find so interesting is anytime that I am playing the game, I love it. Anytime that anybody talks, I hate it. Oh boy, howdy do I hate it. And, it's not necessarily that, I don't agree with some of the themes that it's trying to bring across, or how it's trying to show that, religious fanaticism can be very bad. Because, there's definitely that messaging here, and yes, that's true. Religious fanaticism can be very bad. But so can bad dialogue, can also be very bad. And bad story beats can also be very bad. And bad characters can also be very bad. And when you get into situations where you are stuck in a car, in a pickup truck, next to this redneck who's talking for 10 minutes and there's nothing that you can do to skip anything because, he's driving and all that you can do is look out the window and listen to this guy talk with his very badly written dialogue, and it's awful, and I can't stand it. But then I go into the open world, and I go, okay, you know what? I'm going to go and take out this whole camp. And I do, and it's a blast, and I love it, and I love all the dynamic things that you can do. You can go ahead and you can get predator animals. You can kind of lure them there, and just have a bear go ahead and take out the entire camp, and just sit back, relax, and laugh. You can have so much fun with Molotov cocktails. The weapons are fun. It controls well. It's a lot of fun, and it has that whole checklist thing that I like in a lot of open world games where it's like, I have this big map with a bunch of markers and I want to go and check off each of those markers, and all of that is great. All of that are things that I love. But oh boy, do I hate missions where I have to listen to people talk. Or anytime that I have a cutscene that I cannot skip. Please, let me skip cutscenes. Because I don't care about your badly written story. And let's admit it, it's a badly written story. If it's in a video game, there's a 99.9% chance that the story is crap. And I don't want to have anything to do with it. I want to play the game. That is why I play games, to play the game. So just please, Ubisoft, next time, just let me play the damn game. Please. Now, let's go ahead and jump into some TV shows. And the first one that I have to bring up is a show that I adore the crap out of it. And that would be Our Flag Means Death. And of course, Our Flag Means Death is another show that comes from the great mind of Taika Waititi. And of course, I'm going to be into anything that Taika puts out. Reservation Dogs is great. What We Do in the Shadows is probably my favorite currently running comedy TV show, just in general. I am a big fan of Taika. All of his films, all of his TV shows, I'm in from the jump. And Our Flag Means Death has that feeling of a Taika show in spades. And it does everything so well. And you get a starring vehicle for Rhys Darby. And Rhys Darby is an actor who you would recognize his voice in an instant. You would maybe recognize his face. But what you wouldn't see him do is, be the lead in the show. Usually he's kind of the quirky side character. But here, Rhys Darby shines, and he is outstanding as Steed Bonnet, this gentleman pirate, as he calls himself, where his whole thing is maybe he's not that big of a fan of, killing and whatnot, but he's a big fan of the adventure, and so he wants to be a pirate, but he wants to be the gentleman pirate. And there's so much to this show that is wonderful. I mean, it is laugh out loud funny. Every episode had me just breaking up in laughter. You have so many interesting elements in how it plays with that pirate genre in ways that you would not expect. It has some awesome guest stars throughout the entire show. And it's so much fun. And then you have Taika come on as Blackbeard the pirate, and he just ratchets everything up to a whole other level, because you have Rhys Darby as Stede Bonnet, this gentleman pirate, next to Taika Waititi as Blackbeard, the infamous, murderous, evil pirate, and you get that dynamic between them, and it goes in places that you don't expect. Now, I will say that this show does have some weird pacing issues. Not every episode is a hit. I would say that this is not to the level of What We Do in the Shadows. But if you have HBO Max, you owe it to yourself to give this show a shot, because it is wonderful. And give me all the Taika that you can, because I will just eat it all up. Now let's get into the Marvel shows, because, we have two big Marvel projects that I was able to watch this week. First of all, we were able to finish off Moon Knight. And, of course, we had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And I have a lot of thoughts for both of them. But first, let's address Moon Knight. So, of course, me, I'm a big fan of all the Disney Plus shows. I think that the TV format just in general hits better for me than films usually do. And so if you take something that I love with the MCU and then you put it into that form factor of a TV show, chances are I'm going to like it a lot. And guess what? I like Moon Knight a lot. Is it without flaws? No, of course not. Is it the best Marvel TV show yet? No. I would say that would have to go to WandaVision, and then maybe Loki, and then Moon Knight. And, it's interesting because I've been, talking to a lot of people, kind of getting their thoughts on the show, and exactly how they felt about it, and I think I'm a lot higher on Moon Knight than a lot of people out there. And I think that a lot of the reason for that is my thing with stories in general is I want character development. Like more than the plot making perfect sense, more than just, little elements coming together here and there, more than bombastic action or great set pieces. I want to see character development. And you get so much good character development in Moon Knight. Now, I won't spoil too much for you here, but as you probably know, Moon Knight is about a character who suffers from DID, which is dissociative identity disorder. So, in other words, he has multiple personalities, multiple personas that he has to kind of grapple with, and sometimes these alters, don't really know each other, and so you see a little bit of that, discovery of these alternate personalities, and that whole element is played off so well, because you have Stephen, who is this character, Stephen Grant, who is he's very British and you can tell he's not really British because his accent's a bit off, but he's kind of a little bit timid and he doesn't really know what's going on. And then you have Mark Spector, who is this guy who, is a little bit more gruff. He's a mercenary. And so what I think is such an interesting choice here is to start the show off not focusing on the mercenary, not focusing on the action star, but focusing on Steven and him discovering Mark and discovering what has happened to Mark, where the moon god Khonshu came and basically made Mark into an indentured servant. And that means also, hey, guess what? Steven, you're kind of forced to do whatever, has to be done here as well. And there is one episode in particular, it's the second to last episode, that gets mind trippy. And you know me, I like mind trippy. I like it when shows get weird for weird's sake. And that episode gets weird for weird's sake in the best way, because it's also all about character development, and it's also all about, finding out what makes these different alters tick and putting the pieces together. And that episode alone puts it above most TV in general for me, because it is played so well. Oscar Isaac deserves an Emmy nomination. He plays both of these roles of Mark and Steven so well, and so convincingly, and there are these moments when he is communicating with himself, and the way that he plays it off is masterful. I mean, it's almost kind of to the level of Tatiana Maslany in Orphan Black, which is saying a lot for me, because I love Tatiana Maslany in Orphan Black, and he does such a great job here. I really hope that we get more of him. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention Ethan Hawke, because Ethan Hawke is outstanding as Arthur Harrow, as, this kind of strange force of evil that you're not really sure what his backstory is until you get quite a ways into the series. And May Kalamawi is awesome. I love that we actually get some of that Egyptian representation here, and from everything that I've read, everything that I've seen, the representation of Egypt just in general is done so well in this show, which is very important. Making sure that we actually have what it really is like in these other countries, and have it represented so well, and not just going off of the tropes of, oh, well, look, there's the Great Pyramid of Giza. I guess that must be right outside of Cairo, right? I mean, you can look out your window in Cairo, and and hey, look, there's pyramids, and oh, look, the Sphinx is right there too. And I really appreciate that. This show is great. I highly recommend it, and I'm glad that I watched it. Which, of course, brings me to the big one, which is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is a show that I feel a little bit conflicted about it. And the reasons why I feel conflicted is because I am a huge fan of Sam Raimi. I love the Evil Dead movies. Army of Darkness, I think, is just... I love it, because it has that weird, it has that humor in it. And it's played off so well. I love the original Spider-Man trilogy. Yes, even Spider-Man 3, I think, is actually a pretty good movie that people don't give enough credit for the good things that it does. And of course, Spider-Man 2 is one of the best superhero movies ever made. And so, I love Sam Raimi. I do. I love Doctor Strange. I think that as a character, he is so interesting. And the way that they've played him off in the MCU, I think, has been handled masterfully. And I love so much of that performance from Benedict Cumberbatch, because he's great. I love Danny Elfman. I mean, he wrote some of the greatest music from my childhood, and I really adore everything that he does. And the interesting thing about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is there are things that I loved that I didn't expect to love, and there are things that I didn't love that I expected to really enjoy, and so I am conflicted. I will say, just baseline understanding is I enjoyed this film. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I think that it is a mid-tier Marvel film. However, I will say that I like the original Doctor Strange more. And I like everything else that they have done, dealing with multiverse. Whether it's Loki, whether it's Spider-Man No Way Home. I like those so much more than what we get here. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to be a lot higher on this than I actually am. But then I tried to, kind of shifting my mindset a little bit. And I realized that this movie is a lot more of a finale to WandaVision than it even is to a Doctor Strange sequel. And the moment that I started thinking of it that way, my mindset shifted a little bit. Because if there's anything that you can say here, it's that Elizabeth Olsen is fantastic. And I won't delve into spoilers here, but I will say that the villain is outstanding in this show. And just that level of dread that you get is something that you haven't really seen in the MCU. You haven't really felt afraid of a villain in a Marvel movie until this movie. Because this movie does go full on horror. And then it goes full on Sam Raimi horror. And that last little bit is... oh, it's so great. It is so delightful, and it's everything that I want. And everything that I love about Sam Raimi. And so, in the end, as I think about it, I go, okay, well, there are so many things here that I'm loving. There are so many things here that I think could be improved. But I think that I'm a little bit more on the scale of I really enjoy this. And I want to see more of it. Sam Raimi's style is all over this film. Which, for good, because you have some interesting things that happen. You have some interesting ways that he takes scenes and that he shoots shots that are a lot different than you normally see in the MCU. But it also means that you get some really, really awkward dialogue that it's a lot more of that Sam Raimi Spider-Man wit of one-liners that, if you try to look at it in context, don't make sense. And it feels weird and jilted, especially compared to, how we have seen it handled in a lot of other Marvel projects. Where it's just handled a lot more subtly and with a lot more character to it than, it would be funny if he said this here. Where here, that a lot of the dialogue just in general feels unnatural. And I think that that's a little bit of the Sam Raimi effect, which, was great in the early 2000s. Not as great here, let's be honest. But man, I will say this. We need a new recurring person to make cameos in all of these Marvel projects. Let's make that Bruce Campbell. Because he's great. He is wonderful. And of course, this is Sam Raimi, so of course Bruce Campbell's going to be in this, and I loved him in it. It's great. I will say, before you go and see this, if you are behind on the MCU, you'll hear a lot of people tell you a lot of things that you need to watch. in order for this movie to make sense, I would say that the most important thing is WandaVision. As long as you've watched WandaVision and you have some basic understanding of Doctor Strange, you will enjoy it. I will say that I'm disappointed that it doesn't connect as much with the first Doctor Strange. The first Doctor Strange, I think, is better in so many ways. As much as I love Danny Elfman, Michael Giacchino's score in the first Doctor Strange movie was so much better than what we get here. And I was disappointed by that. Visually, the first Doctor Strange movie was so much more interesting with how it dealt with the mirror dimension and how it looked at the world in a way that you don't see here, where it's a lot more kind of boilerplate. It's not as creative visually, which was very disappointing. Anyway, I know I've been rambling on and on and on here. Bottom line, it's good. Bordering on great. Mid-tier, it's mid-tier as far as MCU is concerned. Which is still better than the vast majority of films and better than every DC movie. Well, DCEU. Dark Knight's good. And that is it for this week. I hope that you enjoyed this update. I mean, of course, anytime that I can delve into Marvel, I'm going to love it. And, we got some other great stuff in there too. Ghost Station, completely unexpected. Our Flag Means Death, great. Far Cry 5 is also there. So, in the meantime, make sure that you like, subscribe, make sure that you comment. I love talking to you guys. I love finding out a little bit more about what you like, what you think, what do you agree with, what do you disagree with. I want you to make me angry in those comments this time. See if you can really rile me up. Because, yeah, internet discourse can be fun sometimes. Until then, make sure that you check out Rogue Life. Of course, I'm going to have a link below, just like last time. But I will see you next time. Reviews!